Welcome to Sports, Clicks, and Politics with your hosts, Ben Hussong and me, Shawn Hannon. Welcome to episode 33 of Sports, Clicks, and Politics. I am Shawn Hannon, joined again by Ben Hussong. Mr. Hussong, congratulations on your Buffalo Bills.
Feeling good.
You should. It was a good game.
It was. That was a good one. Huge win for the defense. I think the defense needed a game like that where the offense really never showed up, but it didn't matter. They still managed to pull down the W.
Yeah, so a good weekend, good live action of the NFL. We had some crazy NBA stuff going on. We got some presidential stuff going on, all stuff that we're going to cover today. We got some lawsuits won by some small businesses, so they punch back, I've heard is the term that they should use as they take on New York State. But let's get back into football, unless you have some weekend highlights that you'd like to share with the audience, other than the Bills' victory.
I made my first ever barn-style door this weekend.
Wow, you're like Mr. Fix-It.
I'm telling you. In reality, it's because I framed out a wall and then I put drywall on it. And then I bought a door, and then it's when I realized that I had mismeasured and I was off by an inch. In case you're wondering, you cannot fit a pre-fit door into a gap that is an inch too small. It will not go no matter how many times you hit it with a hammer. So I gave up, and I just said, it looks like I'm not taking the wall down, so I think we're doing a barn-style door. So did that. My son and my daughter helped me. We got it all done and painted. It came out pretty good. It's a fun project if you're looking for something to do with your kids, by the way. It's not terribly difficult, and it is a good time.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was my exciting news.
So maybe we should have done a at Ben's house home video to like fix it.
I could do that. I got more projects.
Future.
I'm telling you what, I got a lot going on right now. We're trying to turn my basement into an in-law suite for my parents. So when they come visit, they can stay for a few weeks at a time. And I feel like I'm way more capable than I am in reality. So I'm like, I got it. No problem. Let's do this.
Fake it till you make it.
I'm getting better at it, though. That I can give myself that much. I'm still not, good, but I have gotten better. So it's a big improvement. But on to football.
Well, so real quickly, only because only the people that who are watching us right now can actually see what we're wearing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
So who should we be giving thanks to the wardrobe?
Our first merch.
Yeah, something.
Yeah, we got our first T-shirts for Sports, Clicks, and Politics. Big thank you to Raspberry Tees out of Camillus, New York. They do a wonderful job. Great pickup, timely on orders. They do everything wonderful. You can find them on Facebook. I mean, if I'm being completely honest, I might be a little biased since my wife is one of the owners of the company. But still, it doesn't change the fact, like, this is a good-looking T-shirt. And I'm not a terribly good-looking guy, so if it looks good on me, imagine how it'll look on you.
Yeah. Nice. Well, we thank Raspberry Tees, you said it is?
Raspberry Tees.
I like it. So thank you very much. All right, so let's talk football.
Hit it.
So we had 4 games, 2 on Saturday, 2 on Sunday. I'll just go right in chronological order, I guess.
Chronological is a good way to do it.
Packers kind of beat up on the Rams, I felt like.
Not shocking.
No. Anything Devontae Adams does is not shocking to me because I've watched him just win one-on-one matchups all time, but you always wonder, right? So there's a couple guys in the league where you're like, okay, let's see if he's going to be able to go up against Jalen Ramsey. He did, and like I said, it's amazing. I mean, it doesn't hurt that you have maybe the most accurate thrower of the football in the history of the game throwing to you. So you don't have to be that open to actually be open when you have Aaron Rodgers as your quarterback. But again, it goes to show maybe that this game, when the best offensive player, arguably maybe against one of the best cover guys in the offensive wins. I think the rules are set up for that, which is fun. This is not a knock on those rules. It just goes to show that when you have a better offensive player, I think they can always beat the better defensive player in a one-on-one situation.
I won't say always, but I'll say more often than not. Yeah. I would say more often I'd put the money on the better offensive player just because that is the way the league has gone, and it's not a bad thing, I don't think, at all. And there are some great cover corners in this league, but it's not like it's a secret that the chips are stacked against them. You're going to get half the time you're slinging a ball down the field, you're like, maybe we'll get a pass interference. Maybe I catch it. That's what you're going for. So it's fine.
And like I said, I think that there's probably not a defense that's going to be able to stop Rodgers to Adams. If they want to throw, they can pepper him 15 times a game. He's going to get his catches. again, Rodgers is the most accurate quarterback I think I've ever seen. So those other guys don't have to be that good to be open when he's your quarterback. I kind of expected the Packers to win that game. It turned out kind of, I guess, what everybody else had thought. I can't remember what the line was, but it was 32-18, I think was the final. So,
yeah. I mean, it was closer than it looked.
Yeah.
There was a late score by the Packers to pull away, and that was it. And the Rams played well. They weren't as good as the Packers, and I think we expected that rather. We always acknowledge that, hey, listen, the Rams defense is legitimately good. Legitimately good.
Very
and
good.
They can do,
maybe
if
the
they
best
have
in the
the
league.
game, it's not impossible, but the smart money would have been on the Packers the whole time.
Yeah, especially with Donald banged up. Like if he was, who knows how much the ribs play a role, but they got to play a role, and he's just a beast when he's healthy. So, so we get the Packers in the first game. Then we get your Bills, right?
And my Bills.
All right, so let's break down the Bills. I think there was kind of billed as two young, high-powered quarterbacks, but it turned into a defensive battle.
For sure.
Again, you tipped it off at the top of the show that the Bills defense basically held them to a field goal. What are the odds that Tucker misses 2 field goals? That probably hasn't happened in his whole life.
Hit the post on both.
Legitimately, he's the best kicker of all time.
Yeah, he hit the post
not
on
even
both.
close.
Not even like he missed it by a lot. He hit the post both times. It was just that close. I think it turned into all credit to Leslie Frazier. They had a fantastic game plan for stopping Lamar Jackson. They were frustrating him. I think they held him to about 3 yards a carry, which is unheard of. They have the right linebackers to do that. Between Matt Milano and Tremaine Edmonds, they are very fast. They get side to side easily, and then they game planned around that. So they did a great job. The offense really didn't do much of anything during this game. I mean, it was sort of frustrating, but it was good to see it happen. I mean, it was good to see the defense step up, get the pick six, turn it around, and really take the game over and win it. The defense won that game. There's no getting around that. And Stephon Diggs is just on a different level right now of how often he is open and how often he is catching balls.
Yeah, he's awesome. Like I said, he's another guy who could just get open. And like I said, I'm not sure that Allen is as accurate as Rodgers by any means, but he's
definitely not.
He can throw it so hard that sometimes he can just get it there fast enough, or it doesn't matter that it's a foot the wrong way. It's just the defense doesn't have time to react. So,
right.
But that combination with Diggs is great. Like I said, I think I mentioned this before to you at least. I don't know if I mentioned it here, but I heard Mike Wallace, who was a former Steeler receiver when he was with Minnesota, basically compare Stephon Diggs his rookie year to Antonio Brown and the way he prepares and the way he route runs, and it looks like a little Antonio Brown to me. So, no slight to Diggs. I mean, he's unbelievable, but that's just
unreal.
He just Brown came first. So I'm just saying Diggs seems to have. He's in that mold anyway, where he's unbelievably hard to cover. Like he's not going to be that. He's not going to win at the ball sometimes because he's not as big as some of the guys,
sure.
like Mike Evans and Adams specifically. But he is open. And he's so smart in his route running. Like he said, he knows how to find the spot in the zone where if they're playing it, like he gets open, and he's great. In 5 to 10 yard bursts, he's unbelievably quick. He gets open, and like I said, he makes people miss. So again, wasn't much of an offensive output in that game. But 2 defenses.
There's 2 other all due credit around the board here. Is Stephon Diggs was just otherworldly, and number 2 is the Bills fans. Bills fans are definitely the best fans in the world. It's not close. I don't know if anybody saw this, but after Lamar Jackson got hurt and he had to come out of the game, and a lot of us were wondering what happened to Robert Griffin, because I could have sworn Robert Griffin was the backup to Lamar Jackson. Turns out he's not. Who knew? But the Bills Mafia decided to donate money to Lamar Jackson's favorite charity. In 24 hours, they raised $300,000 for this guy's charity because he got hurt in the game. Who does this?
Yeah, Bills Mafia.
I know. This is nuts.
So, anything else to peg on that? That kind of wraps up the Saturday games. We get the Packers in the first game. We get the Bills in the second game. We move to Sunday. We get the what's the other AFC? Browns Chiefs, where we had Chiefs won. Survived. I would say the Browns played very good. But the biggest news out of there was Patrick Mahomes left the game with a concussion and didn't return. I heard reporting on the sideline that he wanted to go back into the game but could not keep his balance. So the biggest question mark left in the playoffs is whether or not Mahomes is one hit away from exiting these playoffs altogether, or if he's going to play next week at all. So I don't think we're not going to know that for days. But his absence from the Chiefs does not make. I mean, they're no longer the favorite to win anything. So
I would agree with that. Nothing against Chad Henne.
Right. Well, I mean, no, it's all against Chad Henne actually. So I mean, he's not Patrick Mahomes, right? So,
that's fair.
But I mean, as a Bills fan, the adage is, you want to beat the players who got you there and beat the best and whatever. But I mean, going against Chad Henne seems quite attractive proposition, no?
It does. I mean, obviously, you never want to cheer for a guy to get hurt. But at the same
He's
time,
already hurt, though, so you don't have to cheer for him, right?
Yeah, I want to throw on that super concerned voice, be like, hey, I just want to make sure he's okay. Concussions are no joke. You don't want to rush back. Take your time, Patrick. You're young. You got your career. At the same time, look, I don't know, honestly, if it's a the other part of that fact is that the Bills' run defense is not great, and if Chad Henne's in there, then the Chiefs are probably going to do nothing but run the ball the same way they did the first time the Chiefs played the Bills earlier this year. They just ran the ball down their throats all game. Can they still beat them with Chad Henne? Yes, they can. And then if you're a Bills fan, that would be way more maddening to lose to Chad Henne and the Chiefs as opposed to Patrick Mahomes. But either way, look, I think the Bills have a very good shot at this. I think that depending on Patrick Mahomes, they are either a slight favorite or a slight underdog. I don't think the line goes to 8 if it's Chad Henne. I think the line goes from like a 4-point advantage for the Chiefs to maybe a 3-point advantage for the Bills without Mahomes. So it's a touchdown swing, but it's still a very good team, and there's still a lot of weapons. And Chad Henne did still put that away. I mean, he played almost the entire second half, and the Browns had opportunities to stop him, and they couldn't do it.
Yeah, no, he played. He said he played exactly what you would expect out of a backup quarterback, or you would want out of a backup quarterback.
Right.
Don't lose the game. Make a play here or there just to kind of keep a drive alive, and he did all that. And like I said, they had a lead, so they could play a little bit differently than they needed to, which would be different. I'm assuming that if the Bills got up, 17-3 in the middle of the second quarter, and Chad Henne was forced to drop back 25 times for the rest of the game, that would be
harder.
Something I think the Bills fans would want. I assume he plays. That's just me, I guess. I don't know. I don't think there's any way for us to really know the medical condition of Patrick Mahomes. So let's assume that he's playing.
I assume he's playing.
I think the Bills can still win the game. I don't think it's like I think they're the underdog.
Sure.
But I've seen, the Chiefs defense can be scored on. They have some players there, but they're mostly going to outscore you. So, and listen, the Bills have offensive players galore, so they might not have the cream of the crop that the Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce offer, but Diggs is right there, and the rest of the arsenal that Josh Allen has, I think, might be better than what he has. We'll also see what happens with the Chiefs running back. You mentioned their running attack. They didn't have their rookie running back this week. He was kind of like he kind of was their. I don't like saying hyphenated names, so I just skip over him.
It's a really weird thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I'm assuming that there's a reason for it. I'm sure it's very sentimental. But anyway, what?
I love you. It's a weird thing. It's a weird line to draw.
It is. It's I don't know.
Sorry.
But I don't think the running attack is anywhere near as efficient as it was at the middle of the season either. So that one thing that you talk about where the Bills might be vulnerable might not be all that strong coming from the Chiefs. So, again, there's plenty of pass for the Bills to win this game. All eyes will be on the quarterback and see if Mahomes actually plays here. But I can't wait for this game. I think it's going to be great.
I'm excited for it, too. Even if I wasn't a Bills fan, I would be excited for this matchup. Like this should be a fun football game to watch. And I think the Bills' defense is a little better than the Chiefs' defense, but the Chiefs' offense is a little better than the Bills' offense. So it's right there. I mean, it's a great matchup all the way around. I think it's exciting. It's fun.
I'm going to call it Roberts' kickoff return for a touchdown. It's going to be the
deciding
thing.
I love it.
The special teams.
I hope so. I feel like he should get one. God bless that dude.
He looks like he's ready to break one almost all the time.
I know. I love that they just give him free license to run the ball.
Speaking of that, did you see go to the game 4 that we didn't talk about yet? Yeah. The Bucs Saints. See the Saints return guy gets basically the opening kickoff returns at something like 75 yards. Then he gets a punt return. He returns that for a touchdown. He calls back. Then he gets hurt. But
ouch.
The dude. I don't think they could tackle him. That's probably the best thing that happened for the Bucs was that dude went out. So. Last game of the weekend, the 2 first ballot Hall of Fame quarterbacks, Drew Brees, Tom Brady, Bucks Saints 30-20, I think was the final. Bucks get a 10-point victory. It looked like they were committed to running the ball for the majority of that game, which kind of slowed down. I think the Saints defense is pretty good, and I think that them being able to run the ball with some success early on kind of eliminated some of the potential big play out of the Saints defense. But another victory for Tom Brady, another record performance. I don't know. Everything he does in the playoffs is just adding to one of his records. So,
Yeah.
Any thoughts on your boy Tom Brady?
I mean, God, he's not my boy. All the respect in the world for the guy. No, can't stand him. I felt awful about this game because my middle son is actually a diehard Saints fan, loves Drew Brees, his favorite player ever. And he cried, obviously, when it was obvious they were going to lose. He's very passionate about football. He's super into it. And it was sad to watch. And here's the reality: you can't turn the ball over 4 times. You just can't. Like if you lose the turnover battle 4-0, you're not going to win a game. So I don't think that they played terribly bad. I think it was, one interception went off a guy's hands. Another was a miscommunication with Alvin Kamara. It doesn't normally happen. It did this game. And that's the thing about when you go against Tom Brady in the playoffs, you're not going to have that room for error because he's not going to make those mistakes. So you need to be on that level, and you need to go out and throw the knockout punch at some point. But they beat themselves. I think that was the really sad part about it was you didn't need that stuff to happen. So I still think there's a part of me that would love the idea of the Bills beating the Chiefs and the Buccaneers beating the Packers next week, and then the Bills gotta beat Tom Brady.
Do you really want that?
No, but I love the story. I do. I love that storyline of that would be amazing, and it would be wonderful and everything else. Is it realistic? I don't know. I mean, it's not an impossibility. Who would you rather play in the Super Bowl?
I don't know. Like I said, I mean, to me, all the matchups are great, right? I mean, there's really 4 great teams left. They all have a storyline. There's something to write or talk about and kind of dive into with all these matchups, whatever way you want to pick them. So, I mean, listen, I guess I'm rooting for the Bills in large part because I don't know, you're right here, buddy.
Yeah,
right. So, I don't really have rooting interest in the NFC. I think the Packers are the better team. But the Packers can be run on. So if the Tampa Bay Bucks are going to commit to running again, they have 2 viable, capable running backs and offensive, aerial weapons to play action off of. So I think there's a path for the Bucks to win for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's Packers Bills.
Okay,
I like the Bills.
Do you?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay. Listen, I
mean, you hated me in week 3 when I said I think the Bills are a playoff team, and you were like, "Whoa."
Yeah, I know. I was wrong. My bad.
I don't think you were wrong. You just didn't want you had been scarred. You have scar tissue.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
A lot for sure. I've got a lot of scar tissue. So there's an interesting point that a buddy of mine brought up to me yesterday. Last night he sent me a text. Me and one other guy. And I'm going to ask you the same question.
Okay.
Is Tom Brady the worst quarterback remaining in the playoffs right now?
We're not counting Chad Henne, right?
Obviously, no.
Okay, good.
It's a hard. I wrote back, no, but just don't ask me to who is worse because I don't have an answer.
So, I mean, listen to me. I think Mahomes is the best quarterback. If he's healthy,
he's doing stuff nobody else can do.
Right, he's the best. Yeah. And then I think it's Aaron Rodgers.
Sure.
In large part because I've just never seen the ball thrown like that dude throws the ball. And so now you're dealing with two totally separate entities within Josh Allen and Tom Brady of who is better or worse.
Right.
Yes, he's the worst.
It's a hard.
But I mean, we're
you're splitting hairs.
Yeah,
right.
If that. So
and you're not Tom Brady in his prime is better than Josh Allen is
right
now.
No. I'm talking about right now.
43-year-old Tom Brady
exactly
is more of a debatable question.
Right. And the only reason I say that is it's just because of Josh Allen's legs. Right. So he can do a couple other things that Tom Brady just can't do after a play breaks down, Tom Brady just goes to the ground and like a sack of potatoes to try to avoid getting hurt, and Josh Allen is trying to, jump over 4 guys. So
did you see his dive in the Ravens game though, where the defensive lineman like 2-hand shoved him and he flailed his arms in the air and fell back?
I mean, he probably didn't even need to do that. He would have got the penalty anyway. But
it's so funny when dudes that are 6'5", 6'6", built like him are like, oh my God, I fell down.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
no, you didn't.
Thanks, soccer, for that.
Yeah, right. It worked. You got the penalty.
No, it's bled out to the NBA, and here we are. So,
yeah.
But all in all, like a great week of football.
Sure.
I expect 2 really, really good games this upcoming weekend. What do we got? The 3 o'clock and 6:40.
Yeah.
3:05 and 6:40. So we get the NFC first.
Mm-hmm.
Buccaneers and Packers at Lambeau. And then we get the Bills traveling to Arrowhead for the AFC Championship against the Chiefs. So obviously we'll be paying attention to whether or not Mahomes plays. That's going to be the driving, the storyline for this whole game. So hopefully he plays, and hopefully we have a good game. Anything else about the NFL weekend you want to talk about?
Nah. Oh, yeah, Browns. Run the ball more next year. My God.
They run the ball.
Not in the first half.
Well.
That's like they forgot. Also, the NFL should change that rule about the fumble into the end zone going out and it being a turnover and a touchback. That's way too harsh.
Yeah.
That's way too harsh.
Yeah, so those guys talking about that in the halftime show, I think it was. I don't know if it was Sims or I don't know, one of the guys. Oh, maybe it was Cower who brought up the idea that maybe they just go back to the 20 and keep the ball.
That would still be a 20-yard penalty.
Right.
Right. And I'm on board with that.
I mean, it's been that way forever. It's not like this is some new thing. I mean, this has happened.
You just never think about it.
No.
It was amazing, the Super Bowl, the Bills against the Cowboys, where they just got smoked. But Leon Lett picked up a fumble, started running in, and he started like high-stepping. And he held the ball, and Don Beebe chased him down, and just before he got in, shoved the ball out of his hand through the back of the end zone. It was a touchback. Nobody remembers that play because that game was a shellacking.
Yeah. Leon Lett remembers that play.
Leon Lett does remember that play. That's probably true. But you know what? Leon Lett still got 2 Super Bowl rings, so he doesn't care.
No. So let's quickly shift to the NBA for a second here. I know this is not your thing, Ben, but I've been telling you how NBA the COVID is basically running havoc over the season right now. Most of them have happened in mid-January, but there's been something like, 14 games that have been postponed. I'm assuming they're going to try to reschedule and make those up. I don't know if they are or not. Like there might not be enough time in the schedule to actually do that, so those must be games lost. But there's been this, and it's picking up speed, where a player will be either in contact with somebody or close contact with somebody who is positive or test positive themselves, and basically anybody who is within that person or within that proximity of that person is being basically self-isolating or self-quarantining, and they're causing. So in the NBA, real quick, you have to have at least 8 players to play a game. Like that's by rule. You got to have 8 players. There has been at least a dozen or so games where there's been so many players who are out because of contact tracing that they don't have enough to field 8 players out of 15 that they have on the roster or whatever it is.
Amazing.
So, right. So there's these, and you're getting in some of these there's been probably another 10 or 12 games where they've played with the bare minimum of 8 or 9 players, and they're the ugliest basketball games you could possibly imagine, right? You got a bunch of guys who were never expected to play more than backup, garbage minutes, who are playing 30 minutes a game. So you're getting all these games where, and again, I'm coming at this only because I pay attention to the NBA through fantasy. You're getting a bunch of players that nobody knows. These coaches, didn't have a preseason to coach any of these guys, and they're just basically throwing into these NBA games, being like, "Here you go, figure it out." And so some of these games are terrible blowouts. You're as a coach, I guess you're treating some of these games as just a backup preseason. You're like, okay, well, let's figure out what we do have out of some of these guys.
Sure.
But it seems like that they have a problem, the NBA that is, and I'm worried that the season is going to either get shut down temporarily or permanently is the worst case scenario. I don't know. It's just something that has really picked up a lot of speed. A lot of these postponements have happened in the last couple of weeks. I think the first one was like just before Christmas, but then there's been, again, like another 10 or 12 of them the last, 3 or 4 days or maybe like last week. So something I'm paying attention to. Other NBA things, and real quick, most of them are not positive test results. They're contact tracing. So these people are not necessarily sick. They're just isolating because that's what the rules say. So I don't know if that means they need to adjust some of these rules, get better at testing or what, but there seems to be a problem bubbling here with the NBA schedule, and it doesn't seem like there's a way out right now.
Are they doing lateral flow testing or PCR testing or both?
I've tried to ascertain that by reading some of the stuff. It seems as though they're doing PCR testing because sometimes they're not knowing right away, right? So like the test is here. If they're doing that, they know in 15 minutes if they're doing the rapid test. So it seems as though they're doing the PCR test. I gotta assume these NBA doctors, at least one out of these 30 whatever teams, one of these guys knows about PCR, right? So like, I don't think the NBA is oblivious. I don't think the NFL is oblivious when they're doing these testings. I mean, I think they're trying to be thorough, and I'm not saying that they shouldn't be using PCR. They should just be backing that up with additional testing to know whether or not they're actually sick or not, right? So we've talked about this. But it's I don't know. If I was an NBA fan and one of these teams, well, I am, but if you're invested into this, like not more than I am, then I'd be scared that this season might get through. So we also had a huge blockbuster trade in the NBA.
Yeah, we did.
That was exciting. I mean, so I've kind of been on the Nets a little bit already. Was the healthy return of Kevin Durant and crazy man Kyrie Irving.
I love Kyrie Irving. I love him.
Yeah, he's the best. Like,
he's so far off.
So I'll
the
ask
wall.
you a question.
I love the dude.
Like, you probably already answered it for me, but who would you rather have as a teammate, James Harden or Kyrie Irving?
I mean, neither, but I love listening to Kyrie Irving talk about. Well, listen, obviously, you could. It's easy to laugh at, but at least this dude is so far open-minded about everything. He's like, "Hey, how do we know the Earth's not flat?"
Right.
Like, hell yeah. Let's talk about this.
I don't know if you know this, but he has not played in a couple of weeks because he had a gigantic indoor party. He's been fined. I don't know what, like a maskless. Like he just had a party. Like screw this, I'm out. And so I've said this before. There's going to be more Kyries coming around. They're going to get a case of the Kyries. These NBA players you just can't lock them down for weeks and think that nothing. Like it's a recipe for disaster. So
especially
Kyrie is just
season's so long.
And Kyrie, like I said, I think Kyrie just knows that he can just be the tip of the spear and be like, I'm going to do what I want, and because everybody already thinks I'm off my rails anyway. But I think he's going to open the door for other NBA players to do exactly the same thing. They're just gonna revolt eventually and be like, listen, this is all dumb. I'm not, right now they're talking about going into, they won't allow hotel guests when they're on the road.
It's amazing.
Right? Like it's impossible to patrol that. Like you could do it, but you don't think the players are going to try to figure out a way around it. You're crazy. So it's just setting up. The season is really crazy. But anyway, so Kyrie, now we get to add James Harden to Kyrie and Kevin Durant. Now remember, if we go, I don't know, 2 teams ago, James Harden and Kevin Durant played with each other at Oklahoma City when they had Michael Westbrook. Russell Westbrook. Sorry, Michael Westbrook was the receiver. Bad fantasy player.
Brian Westbrook was a great fantasy player.
He was excellent fantasy player. But so are the Nets better now? I think so. Their offense is obviously unbelievable with Kyrie, Harden, and Durant. I mean, basically any one of those 3 guys can win a game against anybody. They lose a lot of depth. I think the Rockets, it's kind of like a 3-team trade where Harden went to the Nets.
Yep.
The Nets unloaded a bunch of players to the Rockets, and then Karis LeVert ended up with the Indiana Pacers, and Victor Oladipo came back from the Pacers to the Rockets. But the Rockets ended up with something like 8 draft picks.
A lot.
Like a lot. Like they're loaded. And like I said, I because I watch a lot of basketball, the Rockets have some players. Like, John Wall looks really good. I mean, he came back obviously from 2 crazy injuries and missed a whole year, but he looks really good. I'm not as sold yet on DeMarcus Cousins, but in the limited time that he's played, he's looked really good. And their center kid that they signed away from Detroit, Christian Wood, has been unbelievable. I mean, other than being a fantasy monster, the dude is almost unguardable. I don't understand how this dude is on a 6th team either. Like, he signed some $41 million contract in the offseason. I don't know how he bounced around for so long and nobody thought that this guy could be where he is now. So he still feels like he's, learning as they go, but he's a big, tall, like athletic center, kind of like I feel like what the centers of the NBA future are going to be. Where these guys can step out and hit 3-pointers and still, mix it up down low. So Houston is set up for a while.
Agreed.
They could be a team that if they can capitalize on this trade, I think they're the. I mean, listen, if the Nets win their championship, they won the trade,
All
right?
worth it.
That's all they wanted to do. So, but I think the Rockets got probably, a mother load that they possibly could have imagined for that guy. I mean, not trying to dismiss how good Harden is. He's great.
He's amazing.
They got a stash.
It's similar to the Cowboys trade years ago where they traded away. I just blanked on his name.
Herschel Walker.
Thank you. Herschel Walker. I had Earl stuck in my head. And I was like, his name is definitely not Earl.
Campbell.
I couldn't. Yeah. Yes, let's go with that. That's what I was thinking. Where they traded with Herschel Walker and they built a dynasty. And now listen, obviously they won the trade, but same thing. All you need if you're the Nets is one championship, and everybody says it's worth it. Yeah. You got to win one. You win one with these three. Now, listen, I think these three are...
these three are together for at least 3 years, I believe. They're all under contract through 23, so...
They got a shot. I mean, they are a legitimate threat to take it. It's just so much talent on the floor at one time. That's crazy. I have somewhat of concerns on how do they mesh together. It's because they all seem to be a similar style.
Well, they're all alphas for sure.
Yeah,
right?
they're all alpha. That's the right way of putting it. They are all the alphas, where it's not the team that's built around the shooter, the passer, the finisher, whatever else. It's 3 stars, legitimate 1A stars. That can work. It doesn't have to not work, but it's certainly something you'd want to be concerned about. The other less talked about part of this trade, which I find sad and funny all at the same time, James Harden, by moving from the state of Texas to the state of New York and into the city, no less, out of his contract, just by moving those teams will cost him roughly $13.5 million in taxes.
He wants a championship more than anything.
Not to account for property tax and the increase in other taxes. No. Just income tax between Texas and New York. It's going to cost him roughly 10% of his overall contract, an increase of 10% in taxes. So that move just cost him $13 million before he even took a shot.
That's less rain dance money.
It is less rain dance money, for sure.
We should invest in some strip clubs in New York City. You think they're...
Can you do that?
I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
I don't know.
We should do it.
I don't think there's too many publicly traded strip clubs.
We should open one. Screw that ice cream. All right. So, anyway, that was crazy trade in the NBA. And like I said, I do have... Yeah, no, it's, it kind of... They're the team to beat now. Like I said, I can't... All the other teams in the East need to catch up. So, again, I'm not saying the trading's not over either. I'm who knows? If Kyrie is really that big of a pain in the ass, I could see them just jettisoning that dude if Durant lets him. So, who knows how this is all going to play out? But, I mean, if the Nets hold on to those 3 guys for a couple of years, they could, they're set to win some games.
They
for
can
sure.
go deep.
So, yeah. It'd be fun to see them and, some of these Lakers teams, with the amount of talent on the court. It's like an all-star game.
Right.
All right, so let's move away from sports, talk about, I don't know, where do you want to go? Impeachment? Inauguration?
Yeah, let's go to impeachment.
Military
not
zone
a lot to
taking
say
over
about
the
impeachment.
Capitol? Okay, yeah.
Let's just check it off the list.
All right, so Trump won again. He leads the league in impeachments, winning bigly.
Winning bigly. Best impeachments ever, more than anybody else. Look at all I had to overcome.
He's a machine.
He's going to win. This is the dumbest impeachment I can ever think of. They're not even going to vote on it in the Senate. Nothing's going to come of this. Everybody's like, yeah, we got impeached. Outside of a few people I follow on Twitter, nobody is even discussing this. Nobody cares that he
because they all know it's theater.
Right. And that's the problem is everybody accepts that this is just nonsense. Of my family who's not as into politics as I am, even mentioning it to them, like, wait, what happened? Oh yeah, I thought I did. Yeah, what didn't I thought it was the same thing. Okay, so you don't care at all. Oh no. I was like, okay. Same with friends and even my Facebook feed the day that it happened. Listen, I have some very politically inclined friends on both sides of the aisle. I am normally inundated with political stuff on Facebook. Pre-election, I am inundated with ads to donate to every candidate under the sun, which I think speaks to the diversity of opinions I get, at least from different people that I follow. Not a peep. One person posted saying a champagne glass and a peach and a 100 or whatever, and somebody else is wrote up it was a MAGA guy. I don't even know what he said, but it was this is a farce or whatever it is. Literally one on each side, and that was all I saw on all social media for the day.
I said that was what I was saying. Like, okay, now what?
And nobody cares because you
There's
know
nothing.
it's not going anywhere.
It's nothing.
And
So
listen, let me just say this as well from a legal standpoint. I am technically a lawyer, but please don't count this as legal advice because I'm not a good lawyer. The idea that you're incitement of a riot, that's the high crime or misdemeanor that you're charging him with for the grounds of impeachment. Because you need grounds. You can't just do, I don't like you, so you're impeached. There's got to be something, like a high crime or a misdemeanor that you're accusing the president of. It's not quite a criminal court, but there still needs to be something. In this case, it was incitement of a riot. Because he said, you got to fight like hell or you're not going to have a country anymore. And they said that was a direct incitement of a riot. I'm not telling you it's wrong, but man, you guys are not going to like that standard when it comes back the other way, because there's a lot of stuff out there about people on the left coming off after and saying, you know, get in the faces of these cabinet people and make them uncomfortable, let them know they're not welcome. Chris Cuomo famously saying, who says that protesters need to be peaceful, which was probably the dumbest question ever asked. And AOC stuff on you need to make people uncomfortable because that's how change is going to be, when they had the Senate during the Kavanaugh hearings overrun with protesters on the other side of, look, if that's the only standard of this is incitement of a riot, you're going to have almost every politician who's ever supported a protest is going to end up having this.
Yeah, they're going to cross that line. Yeah, right.
Right.
Yeah,
and
this is the line we're drawing.
This is the stupidest line to ever draw. Like,
right.
This is crazy. And I get that people don't like him, but this has been my thing on Trump all along of, he brings out the worst in people of like, look, just because you think he's nuts, don't lose sight of where we're going and what we're doing. I get it. You can disagree and that's fine, but it's not like he's some exceptional level of corruption or evil that we've never seen before. Right. He's like par for the course. This is not abnormal. Yes, it's covered more, but if you're looking at this, you're not going to like what comes out of this standard being set. Because everybody's going to fall victim to it. Everybody is going to be eligible for impeachment. Impeachment's becoming a joke already. Yeah. And they're
going to impeach Biden on day one.
Yeah, this is idiotic too.
Like I said, it's all theater.
It's all theater at this point, and it's
sad.
It's
like wrestling.
That's a good analogy, actually. And please don't blame that all on Trump either. It's not, because both sides are guilty.
No, he's just a symptom.
Yeah, he's a symptom of a larger problem. And now the problem is it's actually exacerbated the problem, because nobody wants to. Like, if you think that once Trump is gone, we're all going to sing Kumbaya and come together, you're nuts. And I hear it from people on the left saying, well, listen, I can't, after all we've dealt with, I don't know if I'm ready for unity right now. And I hear from people on the right, like, after they just trashed my guy and called me a racist for 4 years, you think I'm ready to come back and say unity? Like, maybe? Could we? Like, is that too much to, yeah, no, we're not doing that? All right, cool. Fair.
Yeah,
Fair
like
enough.
I said, Biden is not a unifying candidate. I just don't think so. I don't know that we need a candidate to unify. I don't know what it is. Maybe everybody turns off their news. That could help.
That'd be a great thing.
But so let's turn this from impeachment, which I think was, again,
at best premature,
for sure. And I think it's just a way to try to me, this is I don't think anybody ever thought that he was going to be removed from office, as a way to hinder any future aspirations politically, whether or not he runs for office or whatever he does. Anybody in his team runs for office or whatever. This is just a way to further tarnish their existence, so that any future aspirations are kind of covered with this. So
yeah,
but I don't know. Like they're talking. Maybe you know it, Mr. Lawyer. If he is impeached after Biden is the president, he's no longer the president. Does that even matter?
I don't know.
So I've heard both sides. Like, I've heard people say it doesn't even matter that if he's impeached after. Right. We're to a point where we're 3 days away from this, and we're still, again, just doing everything we can to scream that we don't like the color orange. So
even if you wanted to do an impeachment, fine. Why are we not waiting for all of the facts to come out? Like, the Capitol Police haven't even issued a report or an analysis of what happened.
Well, you know why? Because he was going to be out of office in the 20th.
I get that. Exactly. But why rush this? Like, remember when it was more important to be accurate than it was to be first and immediate? Do you remember those days? Weren't they glorious when it used to be seen as a virtue to have patience and go, wait. What are we doing?
You got to get it on Twitter quick as possible.
Yeah, like, what is the upside to this? And then of all of the injustices, in case you were not sure, this was a farce and an absolute joke of a process. They named Eric Swalwell as the impeachment manager.
He was one. I think it was like, I don't know, 11 of them or something. I don't know. But he's one of them. Yeah. Come on.
God. To name him on this thing after he just got caught having an inappropriate relationship with an outed Chinese spy, and a pretty long-lasting one, too.
Yeah.
And they're like, hey, we should probably, he's on the Intel committee. That's probably dangerous. Should we take him off? Nah. I'm sure it's fine. Oh, and we'll name him onto this prestigious post, too, of all this. Like, oh.
That's what we need.
Great. Yeah, way to go, guys.
Yeah, like I said, it's just another part of the theater, right? It's just another actor. It's just all nonsense. So, I don't want to get into what we think a Biden administration is going to look like going forward here, because who knows how long that's even going to exist. But not because of the impeachment, but because of other reasons. Not those reasons either. Holy moly. Health reasons. I don't think he's going to make it.
Awesome.
So I don't know. Like I said, do we want to talk about the optics of his inauguration, basically being the backdrop of 25,000 National Guards troops and a fence and helicopters and the Marines and whatnots go? Like, what are we doing?
I got nothing.
What are we doing?
I don't know. For what is ultimately going to end up being like a virtual inauguration over Zoom.
Right.
Like, I don't know.
I mean, it looks it can't look good to the rest of the world, right? It doesn't look good to us. Like, it's a terrible thing.
All right, so I'm just going to throw this out there because this is who I am as a human being. I don't care what it looks like to the rest of the world about any issue. I'm not saying it's not important. I'm not saying like we shouldn't consider it, but it's anybody who says that, like, well, how does this look in foreign countries? Like, I don't care.
Well, okay, let me just this is a pushback, but like when I see other countries and their militaries behind them, like, it does make me think that they're like on the up and up, I guess is my point, right? Like if they're using their military as some kind of signal as a backdrop, which I'm not sure this is necessarily, I don't know if it's planned this way, but it's going to serve that way. It's got to make people like, okay, what the hell's going on over there?
Sure, I get that. And I do that because you can present anything. If we've learned nothing else over the last 4 years, you can present anything to say the message you want to say. And the media has done a tremendous job of that over these past 4 years in particular of insanity. Yeah, listen, I think it makes me uncomfortable for different reasons. It's just that the view, some guy in England or Ethiopia, what they think of it is like it's not registering for me. The same way that he shouldn't care what I think of their optics in their country. I don't live there. I'm not a part of it. I'm not well versed enough to give an informed opinion on it. In this case, though, yeah, no, it's super uncomfortable. It's really weird. I don't have a better way of describing it. It seems wrong that this is happening here. And look, basically all it's going to do is whatever your bias already was, it's going to confirm it. You're going to say, like, on the left, well, you see what a threat that Trump has turned these cultists into and how dangerous the world is now. And if you're on the right, you're going to say, well, maybe if you need this much security to suppress the people and keep them away, then this guy shouldn't, the guy wasn't really elected anyway. So whatever you already thought, you're going to continue to think. And I don't really blame you because God only knows where the truth actually is at this point. We have no idea. I mean, if you're ready to say definitively there was absolutely no election fraud, I'm going to disagree with you. I think there is evidence of election fraud. Not saying it mattered, not saying it was the determining factor, but to say it and dismiss it outright, I think is incorrect. At the same time,
to your point, and I don't know, I might cut you off, but so many people have these binary thought patterns, right? So if it's not this, it has to be this other thing.
Yes.
And that's the problem because there's always nuance to it.
The truth is almost always in the middle. And that's exactly what I was just going to say. And look, there is evidence. Does that necessarily definitively mean that it happened and it was enough to swing the election over? No, I don't know that. You've gun to my head. Do I think it's more likely than not? Yeah. But I'm not looking to overturn the election over it because I don't know. I'm not at that point. I just look at it and think, look, and a lot of it is the cybersecurity stuff of there's no good reason to connect these machines to a Wi-Fi. There's no good reasons why you have a proprietary algorithm counting votes. There's no reason to have a USB port plugged into these. What happened in Georgia, in Pennsylvania was weird. I don't care by any standard you want to say. It was weird how the exact same thing happened in those states, and then those demographics went against the demographics from the entire country. Even what happened in Georgia was weird. I'm not saying, again, I'm not out protesting in the streets. I'm not saying overturn it. I'm looking at it and going, Man, I hope somebody looks into that because that seemes wrong. Like, there's a lot of smoke there for there to be absolutely no fire and this to all be on the up and up. That's my opinion.
But similarly, and I don't know if this is there was this assertion that, it was all Trump supporters at the Capitol and there was no instigators, right? So it's the same thing to me. It's not one or the other. It's not that there wasn't a bunch of Trump supporters doing vandalism and violence and doing shit that they shouldn't have been doing. There was plenty of it. But for the DOJ and then the media just to parrot it the next day, like there was no evidence of Antifa involvement. I'm like, yeah, there was. We watched it. So right. I don't understand the rush to just this binary narrative that you can't, like I said, I might get accused of defending MAGA hats because I point out that, okay, well, the DOJ was wrong here, and I'm a Trump guy. So everything that's I think this is some of the problem with our current state of politics is that there is no engagement between the two lines, right? So like they only have their distorted, built up perception that is created within their bubble of the other side for both sides. So one side has this one bubble perceived, and the other side has this one bubble perceived. Nobody's ever outside of that bubble. I think I'm outside of both of those bubbles. I'm probably in my own for sure, but at least I see those other two bubbles, and I can see them just being completely hypocritical every single day. And so I have no problem. I mean, I'm not sorry when I point out hypocrites on either side, and it is what it is, but
the consistency of the hypocrisy is what's impressive.
Yeah.
It's the normal. It's not the exception anymore. It is the norm. And it's how, to your point on the Capitol thing, look, you can acknowledge that Antifa was there and a part of it, and that still you can be opposed to what the MAGA people were doing there in the first place. That's an okay position.
Yeah, all of them were idiots. Right. So but just to say that one group of idiots wasn't there just to protect another group of idiots seems idiotic. So
it is idiotic. I mean, it's going to lead to bad things.
Yeah. And so we kind of went away from what I wanted to read, but I do wanted to read what I thought was a fair assessment of the situation at the Capitol. This comes from Matt Kibbe. He does good work within the Liberty Movement. So this is a tweet from him, I don't know, a few days ago. It says, in 9 days, we've gone from shirtless, unarmed dude wearing buffalo horns, breaching the inner sanctum of government, to shutting down and barricading most of D.C., enforced by 25,000 soldiers. From comical incompetence to sweeping authority and overkill, government in a nutshell, right? It is mind-boggling to see the reaction of this, nonsense. So I don't know what, again, I don't know what the hell's going on in the rest of the world. There's a bunch of stuff that we're not going to get into today, but
listen, even more troubling, before we dive into any of that might have to wait for another day, but there's some weird stuff out there. Anyways, look, I've seen it now where they came out and they were going to charge these people. There was a plan that said they were going to kidnap them and take them and execute them. So the media ran with that for like 2 days. And then the DOJ comes back out and says, well, actually, there's really no evidence of that. Like, I'm sorry. Then how do you get that wrong? How do you put that out there via a press release and say this is what happened unless you are certain that actually happened?
Because they need the narrative immediately, and they don't care if it's wrong in 2 days because more people saw the initial narrative than the retraction. Right. So the narrative's out there regardless. They don't have to worry. They can retract it knowing they're going to retract it. Like, we'll just put it out there. If it doesn't come true, we'll just back it up. But we got the message we needed out there.
Yeah, so now people are like, oh, these were domestic terrorists. No, listen, a handful, sure, probably. Yeah, there's probably a handful there that were hell-bent on stupidity and insurrection.
Yeah, prosecute those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. But to say everybody there, like, you see these Chuck Schumers, like, if they were there, go on and put them on the no-fly list. Like, what?
Yeah, listen, I mentioned this maybe on the day it happened to you when it was happening, is that I feel like this is going to lead to a Patriot Act 2.0, and it's going to be basically domestic terrorist focused, and that's going to put a bunch of people who were otherwise harmless, nonviolent people into a list of people who are going to be, detrimentally impacted by their government. And
the liberals will cheer.
Yeah.
That's what's really sad about
liberals
all of
in
this.
quotes. Cause
obviously liberals goes in air quotes on that because this is insanity. I don't care on which side. Listen, I didn't take a strong stance on the BLM protests over the summer because it's the same thing of like, look, I understand why you're protesting. I do.
Listen, there were instigators in that too, right?
Right. And so, yes, there's bad people, but we shouldn't paint with such a broad brush. And we shouldn't say all of them are evil or all of them bad. But look, you tell me that it was so awful that they stormed the Capitol building because now we're calling this the monarch to democracy or whatever. I hate that stuff, but fine. I mean, over summer, protesters took over an entire area of a town. They tried to burn down federal buildings. They went after and destroyed cop cars, municipalities, burned down a police station. I'm sorry, but I think that was worse. Like, I think that was worse because even when the Brett Kavanaugh hearings are going on, people forget this. The protesters stormed the Capitol, and they interrupted the session so that they couldn't get on with the business of the people's whatever. Like, it's all idiocy. It's all show. So I don't usually take a strong stance one way or another because I feel like, look, people feel like they have to do this because of some grave injustice. I don't have to agree. I don't have to disagree. As long as you're not actually causing harm and damage and hurting people, God bless you. If you cross that line, yeah, I'm not on your side anymore. You have to be held accountable for that. I'm sorry, but you do. And even if I'm in full agreement with your cause, if you go and try to blow up a cop, yeah, no, I'm not with you anymore. Sorry, I'm firmly against that action. Doesn't make you a terrible person, but you made a mistake, and this is why I wouldn't go to protest because you're asking for stupid problems.
You should have went.
I'm not going to a protest ever.
We're media.
You are. Listen, I'm just here to offer.
Are we going to cover the Super Bowl from Tampa?
I mean, obviously, I'm going to get a press pass. So we'll try that out. No, listen, for real, this is crazy. If you are so quick to point out if you are now calling for all of these protesters to be held responsible and all to the same level, you are no better than the people over summer saying that all the protesters should be arrested and that they're all thugs and commies and George Soros-led paid activists. Like, you are that person just on the other side. I'm sorry. Like, enjoy your moral superiority because it ain't going to last long.
Yeah, this is just back to the binary thinking. If it's not with us, you're this other thing that we've created in our heads. So
and this only ends badly because you hit the nail on the head earlier with what you said. Nobody's listening anymore. If you are really ready to say that anybody on this side of the aisle and assign negative, like, you're all racists, all of these people over here, or you're all idiots and sheep who can't see what's really happening, like, you're not listening anymore. You're not saying, instead of looking at it and saying, my God, 91% of the people who voted for Trump still think that was the right decision. This really is a cult. Stop. Instead of that, hey, that's about half the country. Let me go find one of these people and say, hey, listen, I don't understand why. And here's you don't even have to ask somebody. There's all sorts of stuff all over the internet explaining it if you care to read it. And the same on the other side of Joe Biden's China stuff and all those other dealings of, wow, that's really corrupt. Anybody who votes for him is obviously just a sheep and is not paying attention. Nope. Some, sure, yes, same on the right. Some are racist cultists who have no ability to think for themselves. Not most. Not most. So why don't you look at why people are voting for him and ask them and look at that a little bit deeper instead of going to the very surface level of, well, this is what I already think about him. This stat came out. Look at that. I was right again.
All right. So let's wrap up anything on the impeachment, inauguration, Capitol, anything that you want to do before I got some local stuff I wanted to ask you about.
Do we want to talk about the things that Joe Biden is proposing right now, or do we want to tie that in later?
Let's do a Biden focus podcast next week, maybe, on some of these plans. What do you think about that?
It sounds depressing, but let's do it.
All right. Well, let's end on an up note. And talk about some local wins for some small businesses here in New York. So we've had two things that have happened since the last show, I believe. In Erie County, we had 30-something restaurants sued New York State, basically saying, orange zones are for losers, and we want to be a yellow zone or something like that. So, but they won, right? So now they are no longer subjected to orange zone restrictions. They just get to abide by all the other restrictions that are other restaurants, which are still ridiculous to me. But it's a win in a sense that it basically takes away the governor's ability to differentiate these zones without actually having scientific proof to back it up. So, like, he's basically, his micro-cluster strategy or whatever the hell he's doing these days has been shown to be unscientific, and his zones that he's using to isolate certain businesses or restrict certain businesses is no longer valid. So a win, I'm sure that helped a bunch of people for Bill's weekend for some of these places getting back open and so, because some of these places in the orange zones were just closed, right? You're not allowed, you only take out only. So
didn't help that much because the game was at 8:15.
Sure. I know there's a 10 p.m. curfew. I can't believe they didn't arrest all those Bills fans. What the hell were they doing there past 10? Dangerous people.
Mm-hmm.
And
Raising
also,
money for a charity.
and also when we had, I feel like it was actually a North Syracuse Cicero billiards hall that might have been on the lead plaintiff in the lawsuit, but they were the last. I don't know what the right word is, industry within the bar entertainment kind of world that was unallowed to open, right? So like this darts and pool banning that came out of New York State was a way to, I guess, limit gatherings somehow within these bar spaces, but they shut down all these pool halls. And again, going to pushing back on the governor's arbitrariness of his enforcement of these rules. These places were all allowed to reopen, basically saying, hey, there's no reason for these places to be closed versus other places to close. There's no scientific reason for it. So we've had these two legal wins. They're injunctions, so I guess we'll see what happens. I think obviously there's still more to play out with those. But I think it's progress in the right direction. You know, that coupled with our some of our most prominent Democrat leaders coming out saying we can no longer keep these businesses locked down and wait for a vaccine, changed their tune since midsummer. But now, are we seeing the unwinding, the ending, the something of this whole crazy COVID lockdownness?
Not yet, but it's the beginning of the end.
So, so I'd like to think that this could be the beginning of some momentum or a snowball or whatnot. So what else has to happen? We've been talking about this for months, so I don't know that we have the answer's not going to come out right here today. If we did, we're idiots for not knowing it for 10 months. But is the way out just through the courts?
No, the way out is not going to be through the courts. The way out is going to be through the politicians, the same ones who are currently keeping everybody down. So I think the reality is that if you look at how this has been reported on and how this has been done, my guess, my prediction is that it's going to end. It should have already ended because the science does not support anything that we're doing. But they can't do it now and let Donald Trump have the claim of, see, I told you guys to open up. Why did you do this? This was wrong. So they can't just concede. This is just the reality of politics. I'm sorry. Instead, what you're going to have is measures instituted by Joe Biden that are going to come through, mask mandates and maybe a quick shutdown, and it's going to be, we're going to wear a mask for 100 days. And then they're going to silently and continue to change the way they're doing PCR tests, and they're going to do more and more of the lateral flow tests, and they're going to change the cycle thresholds on the PCR tests or stop running them altogether, similar to what they did when the swine flu was out in 2009.
Don't get us banned, Ben.
Screw that. 2009 when they did the same exact thing, and Biden and Obama said stop running these tests because they're inaccurate, and everybody said okay,
you're going to test us into a pandemic,
right? And so now it's the same thing of like, look, these tests are not meant to be a yes no. It's meant to be that in addition to clinical diagnosis. It's meant to confirm a clinical diagnosis, meaning you saw symptoms, then you ran the test and said, okay, it's more than likely COVID because you have symptoms and now you have the virus too. That's how these tests are supposed to work. We're not using them right. But either way, my point has been these have been easy problems to fix all along. They could have made these changes at any point. What is it so magically about last week that Andrew Cuomo suddenly looked at the numbers and the data, because you got to look at the data and make the decisions based on that? What changed in the data? Nothing. Nothing changed. The data is, if anything, worse than it's ever been. Like, we're at a peak right now, and now is the time that we're going to reopen? No, the difference is that Joe Biden won, and he's going to get inaugurated this week. That's why he's saying it. Because now he's going to say, yeah, I said it even before Joe Biden was president, that we needed to reopen, because this is how politics work, and this is gaslighting. So Biden's going to come in, going to institute some nationwide rules, get some heavy stimulus passed, and we're going to send out money to all the states and the localities. I don't know if we'll do a full shutdown or not. We may, to just, 15 days to flatten the curve. Again. And then we're going to do a mask mandate, even though definitively masks are having absolutely no impact on the spread of COVID. But nobody realizes that. Nobody cares. And they want to argue with you anytime you point out that masks are having zero impact. And then it's going to be going so well, son of a gun, because we're going to change the PCR test. We're going to change how we diagnose. And it's not going to be like widely publicized that we're doing this, but it's going to happen. And so instead of 100 days of masks, we're going to end up with like 50. And then they can say, see, Joe Biden came in and he solved the pandemic and he saved everybody's lives.
He's a hero.
God bless him.
God bless Joe Biden.
So that's what's going to happen. I mean, that's the
You sound very cynical, just for the record.
After the last year of looking at all this COVID stuff, I don't know what else to be. Like, when I tell you there's no reason for this, I mean there's none. Like, there are effective treatments that are being used in other countries that we don't even talk about here, that we don't even think about. We don't. Not only that, we ban them from being used. Like, this is insanity. The way we're testing is nuts. This has never been done. And there's a reason it's never been done. There's a reason the WHO came out over a month ago and said, you got to stop using just a PCR test to diagnose people with COVID. That was December 7th that came out. What are we still doing? The exact same thing. Like, I'm not trying to give Donald Trump credit for anything because he put us into this problem in the first place by going along with all of this insanity for entirely too long. But we got to stop because it feels like at this point, this is just about Trump well, we got to make sure he looks bad and that he's this, that, and the other. And this is not good for anybody. Like, the number of businesses that have gone out of business is so sad. Like, and it had no impact. Like, I talked to somebody that I know back in Buffalo last week who got COVID. He's about 64, 65 years old. I asked him how he was feeling. He said he's feeling good, thankfully. Mild symptoms, not a bad case. I said, I'm really happy to hear that. Good. He's like, I'm just so confused. Like, we were so careful. We wore masks everywhere we went. We didn't go out to eat. We didn't go to large gatherings. I just don't know how it happened. I mean, we were so careful. Like, the only thing we did is go to the grocery store. And even then, we wore a mask and washed our hands and everything else. And I'm listening and just going, all right. And like, I like this guy. I genuinely do. And I felt for him, and I was like, listen, it's a virus. Like, you can do everything in the world, and it's not going to stop you from getting it. So don't feel bad about it. Don't feel guilty. But then it made me think about this guy's life. He's retired. Him and his wife both are retired. They've only gone to the grocery store for the last 11 months. Like, oh my God, that's depressing.
Right.
And if it was working, if it was actually stopping this virus from spreading, I would say, okay, at least it's a cost worth paying.
Well, we would know by now.
You'd think.
We would know by now if it was working.
It's not.
It's not working.
No, and that's my favorite argument to get into of like, well, at least the flu's down. Well, why is the flu down? Well, because everybody's wearing masks. Like, well, then why is COVID spreading? Because not enough people are wearing masks.
Yeah, I have looked endlessly, and I've seen several different reasons why there is no flu, and I don't know why there is not flu.
My best guess, based on all the research I've done, is that it's a superiority of respiratory viruses, where if you're not likely to have two widespread respiratory viruses at the same time, and one of them's going to win out and become more common. That's
right.
My guess.
I mean, some of it is we're not really testing for the flu like we normally do either.
Sure, but the other countries saw the same thing when they got COVID, that the flu dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah, right.
So I think that I don't think it's the testing. Maybe the testing factors in, but I think the bigger factor is there does seem to be something to the one superior respiratory virus is going to beat the others and become the problem that infects humans. I could be wrong. I don't know. But that seems to be the most likely. And the other thing about this that's been absolutely insane is we've acted for now a year as if this is some virus that has no chance of acting like every other virus that has ever been similarly. It's
novel.
A flu-like virus. And for some reason, we're talking like, well, you don't know if you get it. That immunity is not going to be as good as a vaccine.
Not true.
What? And do we even know the vaccine gives you long-lasting and permanent immunity? Well, no, we didn't test that yet. I had another person text me, 35 years old, say, I got the vaccine. I can't wait to get to the second. I said, how you feeling? Like, it's a little bit off, but not bad. I just can't wait to have a 95% less chance of spreading the virus. And I stared at my phone. I was like, nope, you're not getting me. You're not sucking me into this. It's not a 95% fewer chance of spreading the virus. You have a 95% less chance of having a symptomatic case, and that's generous because most of the tests were done on younger people who were unlikely to be symptomatic to begin with. So, the misinformation is incredible to witness in real time of how you can manipulate data and science to say whatever you want. The CDC still references a mask study on its website where the entire study was, if I cough without a mask on and not covering my mouth, but then I put a mask on and cough, where do the droplets go and which is further? Shockingly, the droplets went further when you didn't cover your mouth or put a mask on, and this is used as evidence to support masks. That's the evidence? That's part of it. There's 13 other studies. Yeah, they're all about the same. It's what we have done for the last year. I don't know. When they look back on this historically, there will just be utter confusion to the point of laughter. I don't.
I mean, I say I hope, because I hope this is not like perceived as some kind of medical miracle, and just we do this every 4 or 5 years when the next fucking bug comes out, and all of a sudden we're in lockdown mask mode again. So
yeah, or it's going to be like every other SARS virus that has ever come, like sudden acute respiratory syndrome, like SARS-1 or SARS-CoV-2, and it's going to behave like every other one, and it's going to have a really, really high burn rate for about a year, maybe 2, and then it's going to burn out. I'm not telling you that's guaranteed to happen, but if you were going to play the odds, that's what you put your money on. But hey, at least we got remdesivir that has no impact on mortality and a vaccine that doesn't stop you from spreading the virus. Way to go, scientists.
progress. All right.
And I'm happy all this stuff is there. Let me be clear. It's a modern miracle of what we have done with the technology and the science. It is incredible. It's the ignoring of all the other things that should have been good news for people, that should have been reasonably intelligent and easy to figure out, that we have just ignored at the expense of just these 2 things. That's my issue with it. I'm glad we have those, but we shouldn't have ignored everything else and scared the crap out of people for 10 months unnecessarily. That was insanity.
All right. Well, like I said, hopefully some of these lawsuits pick up some steam, and I don't know, maybe we get some local politicians to step up and kind of push back against the state's mandates and restrictions, and we get out of this sooner than later. But anything else you'd like to leave the folks with, Mr. Hussong?
No,
just build doors at your house with the kids. Okay.
I'm going to build my next barn door soon.
All right. Well, on that note, ladies and gentlemen, we thank you for joining us another week here. We appreciate your patronage, if that's the thing.
Sure.
But please
Viewership.
like, share, subscribe, all the things that we need you to do on social media. We will be back here again Monday. Maybe we'll discuss your boy Biden's grand plan. The Great
excited.
Reset, I think he calls it.
Listen, guys.
Is that what he calls it?
I don't know.
Dark
what he
Reset?
calls it. The Great Reset.
The Winter Reset?
It's not the dark. It's not winter.
The
is
Dark
coming.
Winter Reset?
It's uplifting, and everybody's going to finally win.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you next week. Thank you for tuning in.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah.